Hi everyone, welcome back to Swedish Plantguys. A while ago we made a video called All You Need to Know About Dracaenas, and that covers the basics on all different varieties of Dracaenas, how you can take care of them and make them thrive. But we got a lot of questions for videos concerning specific types of Dracaenas. So that's what we're making right now, and today the main character is this plant here, the Dracaena Cintho. But I recommend you to go and watch the All You Need to Know About Dracaenas video, then come back here and watch this one if you have a Dracaena Cintho or if you want to buy a Dracaena Cintho. Because here we are going to talk a little bit about what makes this specific Dracaena a little bit different. What makes this one different from the generalized version of the Dracaena. Now we've gotten a lot of questions concerning brown tips on Dracaenas, and I have a Cintho here that has a couple of brown tips on a couple of the leaves like this. Now if you have this on your Dracaena, it's not a problem, because this is what we call mechanical damage. These damages can be caused by wind. If it stands in a place in your home where it can get a little bit drafty or windy and the leaves are moving a little bit all the time, you can get these mechanical injuries. And that is because the plant cannot get the water all the way out to the tips here. Because when it gets out here, because of that movement and the dry air inside of your home, it's going to evaporate quickly from the tips, and you will get these small brown tips on them. It's not a danger to the plant, it's just a danger for how the plant looks. So if you get this, it's just an indication of maybe you should move the plant to another location. It can also be that you have placed the plant somewhere in your home where usually when you go past it, you touch it like this. And if you do that a lot of times, repeatedly, you will also get these small brown tips. But there is another brown tips like this. And that is, this is light brown and a little bit hard. It's hard. But if you get tips that are very, very dark brown and very soft, very soft, almost watery when you touch it, then you have a completely different problem. And usually it's concerning the roots, that something has happened to the roots and the plant can't handle that. So if you get these watery dark brown tips, pull up the roots and maybe repot it and see to it that it doesn't get too much water. Usually it's too much water that does that damage. But this damage that is light brown and hard and almost like crunchy is mechanical damage and nothing you have to worry about. So we have to look at this type of Dracaena. Now a couple of things hit you right away. This is a mass-produced Dracaena, and you can see that very easily by looking that we have two stems that have been planted in this pot. And you can get this type of Dracaena in all different sizes. You can get a pot with one stem, a small stem like this, or maybe two stems. We have, right next to me here, we have a three-stemmed version, and then you have larger ones. However, there is a difference between this type of Dracaena and the type we've talked about before, and that's the Dracaena massangiana, the corn plant. Because that type of Dracaena comes in what we call a mother plant. And that has a very thick stem that branches into a very branched version of a Dracaena. The Cintho doesn't exist in that form. However, they instead make one that they called multi-stemmed or multi-branched, where they put these types of stems close together to make a branched version. However, it's not branched, it's a lot of stems packed together. All these varieties you can buy in your local store, I presume, because this is a very popular plant and this is one of my absolute favorites in all plants, because it's very, very easy to care for and have a it's very good looking plant, and it keeps looking like this for a very, very long time. Now, we have the corn plant here, which is a very popular version of the Dracaena. However, like I've said in that video about the Massangiana, the corn plant, is that over time it loses these nice colorings on the leaves. It gets more green than variegated like this. But the Cintho doesn't. It keeps this variegated, nice leaf throughout its living period. Now, beginning, always when you buy a plant, as I always say, you have to look at the roots. This is a green-stemmed Dracaena. Now, there are two types of Dracaenas, the green-stemmed like this one, and the bark or brown-stemmed like the corn plant here. Just by looking at these, you can know right away that the green-stemmed Dracaena, like the Cintho, it doesn't have a very thick, massive root system. The root system is a little bit smaller than on the corn plant, which means it's not always good to, like I say, knock off the pot and look at the roots. But in this specific case, in this type of green-stemmed Dracaena, the Cintho, it has almost the same root system as the corn plant. So it's a very good, thick, healthy root system for being a green-stemmed Dracaena. So I'm going to try and knock this off to see how it looks. And right away you can see here that when I move the stems a little bit, just a little bit, you can see that it moves. Now, if it looks like this in the shop when you're going to buy it, then perhaps don't knock off the pot. If it's rigid and doesn't move when you do this, then you can knock off the pot and look at the roots to see that everything is fine with the roots. But I'm going to do it either way, because I think that this is a very good quality. It should have a lot of roots, but we'll see. And it does. If it looks like this when you buy a Dracaena Cintho, then you know it's of a good, very good quality. You bought a good plant. But what could happen here, as I said, because the stems were moving a little bit like this, when you knock this off, the whole thing could just fall apart. Now, if that happens, then maybe buy another plant, because that means that it hasn't been standing in the greenhouse long enough. It hasn't gotten that root system it needs for you to succeed with this plant at home. Now, looking at the leaves again, we can compare this to the corn plant, because usually when you buy a Dracaena like this, it's these two types of Dracaenas that are going to compete for to get home with you to your home. And as you can see, they're quite similar. The corn plant is a little bit lighter in the green parts of this plant, and the Cintho is a little bit darker. But like I said before, the Cintho will continue to look like this for many, many years, whereas the corn plant will be more and more green. It will lose this nice coloring here. And also, a big difference between these two is that the Cintho leaves doesn't get much larger than the largest one we have here. Whereas the corn plant's leaves will continue to grow and become bigger and bigger and wider. If you like that, that's fine. However, the corn plant is going to take up a lot of space in your home after a period of time. Whereas the Cintho will be a little bit smaller and maybe fit in better in an apartment or where you don't have that much room. And another thing that is very, very good with the Cintho is that it doesn't matter where you put this in your home. The corn plant, if you put it in a light spot, it will continue to be variegated, will have these small variegated coloring in the leaves. But if you put it dark, you will lose it. The Cintho will continue to have it even if you put it in a darker place. And this is one of the toughest Dracaenas on the market. It can withstand really, really dark places in your home. So you can place it maybe 3 or 4 meters into the room and it will still be nice. It will live and thrive and look like this all the time. Now that is because, and this is what my own personal reference here, I think this is a version, a mutated version of this plant here. Now this is the Dracaena Janet Lind, and as you can see, they look very, very similar. The leaves are almost identical. What differs is the coloring. So I think that they have managed to isolate a mutation from the Janet Lind and create the Cintho here. Now, when you buy this plant and you take it home with you, like I said, you can place it almost anywhere. You can place it really, really dark. But if you want it to really grow and be really lush and nice, you have to put it in a light spot without direct sunlight. If you put it in direct sunlight, what will happen is that it will get a little bit dull. It will lose this nice, vigorant color. It won't lose the color, but it will lose its vigorance and become quite dull. And you don't want that, so don't put it in direct sunlight. Put it in a light spot without direct sunlight. But you can put it a couple of meters into the room without any trouble. But it won't grow as fast, it won't get as big. It will look like this for a very, very long time and grow very, very slowly. But it is a very, very strong plant, so you can do that with this plant. That's why it's so popular, and that's why it's one of my absolute favorites, because you can place it almost anywhere in your home. Now, when you water the Cintho, you water it just like you water any other Dracaena. It has to dry out in between watering. So you water it, and then you feel with your finger. When it's dry, then you water again. It's that simple. If you plant it in a larger container without any drainage holes, then perhaps put down something in the bottom like leka balls. Det kan ju inte vara rätt. vi tar det igen. Now, if you plant it in a bigger container, then make sure that you have some way to know that it's completely dry. For instance, you can put it in a self-watering system, so you have a floater that you can see when there's no water in the bottom of the pot. Or plant it in a bigger pot like this that has drainage holes, and then put it in a bigger container. So you can see that all the excess water runs out, you can empty that, and you have a control system for this. Because if you do like this, if you make sure that it gets dry in between watering, this plant will live very, very long time. It can live for 30, 40 years without a problem. And the next step is nutrients. Dracaenas doesn't need that much nutrients. However, my recommendation is that you give some nutrients to the plants when it's growing. And a Dracaena has 2 different growing seasons. One is in springtime, when it gets lighter inside of your home because it gets lighter outside. It will start to grow in spring. But then it gets dormant in the warmer parts of the summer, and then it starts to grow again in autumn. and then it gets dormant during the winter. So in spring and autumn, you should give it some nutrients. My recommendation is to mix that nutrients with the water when you water it, because that's the best way for the plant to suck up all that nutrients. But make sure that you never ever give more nutrients than they say on the box, on whatever type of nutrients you buy, because always think that nutrients, when you mix it in water, is salt. And if you add too much salt, you will get problems with the roots. Another thing is pests. Now, this strong type of Dracaena doesn't get problems with pests a lot. But when it happens, it's usually mites. It can be spider mites, which is the most common mites. But the Dracaena family has another type of mites that attack Dracaenas specifically. Now, what you should look for is always in the new leaves, because all type of mites, the first thing they attack is the new leaves, because this is the main course. This is the, or you could, some prefer the dessert more than main course, but this is the best part for the mites to start biting into. So if your newest leaves starts to lose its coloring, but the rest of the plants looks quite fine, then you know that something is wrong. It's a big, big warning signal. And if you can catch that as soon as possible, it's better, because the mites are so small that you can't see it with the naked eye. So when you start to see that something is wrong with the plant, there are already millions of mites on the plant. Now, if you wait and let them grow, then you may have maybe billions of mites on all of the plant. And then you have a big problem that you won't be able to save the plant. But if you can catch them very early, it's a simple way of just getting some type of pesticide from your local store. It doesn't need to be a specific brand. Just look on the brand that it says that it can take care of mites. Because not all brands in the store can take care of mites. It's the more common pests that they can take care of, but look specifically for mites. But if you buy that type and do as it says on the box, you will get rid of them quite easily. We will make a video on how you can do it yourself without any pesticides, but I'll take that in a separate video instead. Now, usually the mites attack the newer leaves, as I said before. And you can see this new leaf here, it hasn't got its full color yet, but it's not attacked by mites. Because if it were attacked by mites, it wouldn't be green at all. It would be more yellow than green. So if it turns a little bit light yellow instead of like this, light green, it could be attacked by mites. So then you can try and get rid of them. And if you can get them as early as in this stage, when they only attack the new leaves, you often can get rid of them quite easily. Now, the last thing I want to address about the Cintho is the pruning. All Dracaenas can be pruned, and you can prune them any time of the year. That's almost never a problem. But always think like this. Only prune when you see that the plant is feeling well. If you've had a pest problem, or if it looks like it's sagging, it's not healthy, then don't prune it. But if it looks okay, it looks good, then you can start pruning. And you can cut the stems anywhere. You can cut in the large, thick stem here, anywhere on the stem, and it will produce new buds. You can also cut, you can see here that it's been cut here before, and there has been 3 different new stems from that point. So you could cut it up here instead, and it will produce new buds. Now, if it's healthy and feels very good, you will get 3 or more new buds. But if it's not feeling that well, then maybe you will only get 1 bud. And you want as many as possible because you want to have a thick and nice and lush Dracaena, of course. That's why you only prune it when it feels good. Just cut it off, and Dracaenas are so easy to reproduce yourself. So the stem you have cut off, you can put in a little bit of water and produce a new plant. Now we've made a video about that as well. It's a Q&A video. It's called Q&A concerning Dracaenas. If you're interested in how to prune this plant even more, you can watch that video as well. Now that's everything we have about one of my absolute favorite plants, the Dracaena Cintho. Now, please don't hesitate to subscribe to our channel if you like our videos. Please go through them all and just watch them and hit that like button and hit that bell as well if you want to get notifications whenever we put out a new video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, hej då!